Welcome to day 624 of our Web3 journey. I'm Ed Krasenstein here with my twin brother, Brian. Remember, these videos are sponsored by NFT Tech. They're an investor in Deso. So, Brian, what's the latest with the Twitter files? I know last night, Twitter files number 3 was released. Yeah, so last night, Matt Taibbi released the third thread, the third, I guess, edition of these Twitter files that Elon Musk has been touting, which are communications within Twitter about what happened leading up to the banning of President Trump, as well as other users on Twitter censorship and all of that. But in the files, they discussed mainly the shadow banning of the former president and events that led up to his ultimate suspension. While I don't agree with President Trump being banned or even shadow banned, I think it's important to note that these threads seem to ignore the fact that shadow banning and banning took place on both sides, the right and the left. Maybe conservatives were censored more often. I'd argue that they probably were, or almost certainly were. But so too were liberals, including us. Ed and I, we were shadow banned repeatedly over the course of several years. I actually searched my email last night, and I have an email where I was sending to Katie Rossenberger, I believe, at Twitter. She is like one of the head people in charge of like this banning stuff. And we actually were in communication with her several times. And it was an email where I was asking her why we were shadow banned.
Yeah, and this wasn't the first time. We were shadow banned repeatedly, and ultimately we were banned. And Twitter, of course, claimed that we were banned for buying our accounts. We proved that we did not buy our accounts, but it's a long story. We were never unbanned, but all these people on the right are being unbanned now. But that's besides the story. I think that the files try to show government involvement, at least to some extent. They wanted to show that the FBI was influential in having Twitter censor certain content. But the post that the thread, I think was post number 24 in Matt Taibbi's thread, showed that the FBI flagged a specific post which said that 25% of mail-in ballots were being rejected, which the FBI at the time knew was false. The FBI, of course, they're the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They would know if 25% of mail-in ballots were being shredded or rejected in any way. Twitter did not even censor this post. They were in communications with the FBI, which is normal. The FBI's job is to make sure elections are free and fair and that other information doesn't get in the way. But Twitter didn't even censor it. What they did was they added a little snippet of text which said, "Learn how voting is safe and secure." And when clicked, it would just take you to a web page that explained why mail-in voting is safe, why it's secure, and why some of this information is false. Like I said, note that the FBI's duty is to actually ensure free and fair elections. This includes stopping election misinformation from preventing voters from voting on and around election day. And since there's mail-in voting here, it preceded the election by several weeks. So in this period, they need to make sure that misinformation isn't going to prevent voters or influence voters in any way, and make sure the election's fair. So they did their job.
What I think is kind of, I don't know, I want to say ironic, but Elon Musk has plans to, enable these community notes. And community notes are basically the same thing that Twitter did with this information they received from the FBI. They put a community note, but it wasn't written by the community. It was written by them under the tweet to put out factual information. So I don't think Elon's really going to change that much, except the community is going to get to pinpoint certain articles within the media that prove something true or false. Also, Elon Musk is talking a lot about shadow banning. And he actually is going to continue to shadow ban people. The only difference is that he's going to let people see why they're shadow banned. So,
which is good. Yeah.
This, again, isn't much different than what happened in the past, except now it's going to be more clear why you were shadow banned.
Yeah, my biggest gripe about shadow banning was the fact that people didn't know they were shadow banned and they're going on wasting their time posting. Their posts aren't even being seen. So that was definitely a negative and something that Twitter shouldn't have done, in my opinion. But the FBI, they ultimately did their job. This showed that the FBI was doing their job. And it's the Trump FBI at this point, shall I remind everybody. And I feel that the conspiracy theorists are kind of running on this and taking and skewing this information. Sure, Twitter made many mistakes. I'll be the first one to say that. But to say that they were breaking the law, definitely no evidence of this as of yet, or that there is some sort of deep state conspiracy that got Biden elected by forcing social media companies to censor people, I think is irresponsible and is merely a conspiracy that's void of any facts.
I do want to say, you say it's a Trump FBI. The FBI isn't really a president's, it's their career officials who are probably worked under Obama, probably worked under Bush. So it's not really a Trump FBI, although the FBI director was appointed by President Trump.
Yeah, and the FBI is working under the DOJ, the Department of Justice, which is, of course, also headed by William Barr at the time, who Trump appointed. I'm not saying that means that they're any more or less biased, but typically law enforcement officers lean more conservative. So I think just saying that there's this huge deep state that's trying to get Biden elected by conspiring with social media platforms to censor people is just a little bit crazy.
Yeah, at this point, it's only a conspiracy theory. There's no evidence showing that, and definitely no proof showing that. A lot of people compare Twitter to the town square in that free speech, the First Amendment protects your right to free speech within the town square. And people say, but Twitter has become the town square. And I would argue that Twitter is a lot like a town square, but there's one problem. It's not government run. It's not owned by the government. So it isn't a town square. So Twitter still has the right to do as they choose. The FBI has a right to make suggestions to Twitter. They have the right to recommend things to Twitter, just like they might recommend to American corporations to upgrade your cybersecurity to protect against Iranian hacks. They have a right to tell Twitter that certain users or certain misinformation should probably be censored. Does Twitter have to do it? Absolutely not. That's their free speech. They can do as they choose, and the FBI cannot force them. Even if they tried to force them, it wouldn't hold up in court, and they wouldn't have to go along with FBI. But so there's an argument to be made that back in, I believe it was 1940s, it went to the Supreme Court that public shopping malls were a town square because the public gathered in them to do their shopping, even though these shopping malls were privately owned. And in 1949, I believe, my date might be a little bit wrong, I believe it was around then, the Supreme Court actually said, yes, shopping malls are a public square and you must allow people to protest within your shopping mall. But then in 1976, that got overturned by the exact same Supreme Court of the United States. And they said, no, a shopping mall in the United States is not a public square, and the private entities can control what goes on in that entity. So this brings up Twitter. Is Twitter a public square? Absolutely not, according to case law, according to this law that was agreed upon in 1976, and it was also appealed, I believe, in the early 80s and upheld. But California has their own free speech laws, and California actually says a shopping mall is a public square. And Twitter, Brian, Twitter is technically based in the state of California. So, there's a lot of ifs here. If it went to court, I don't know how it would end up. But until it does, and until there's a ruling on a social media site acting as a public square, it is not.
Yeah, those are all good points. And to remind you, even if it was a public square and somebody within the government recommended Twitter put some sort of message up alongside a post, it still wouldn't be illegal, even unless the FBI said, hey, Twitter, we're going to
take your site down or we're going to fine you unless you do this, it's not a violation of the First Amendment in any way.
Yeah, and of course, even in free speech, there are some narrowly tailored laws that curtail free speech, such as yelling fire in a movie theater. That is not allowed, even though it would seem like free speech, just yelling the word fire. It isn't, because it can cause danger. So there are some narrowly tailored laws that are worked around. And, if Twitter deems something to be incitement of an insurrection or incitement of violence, personally, I think that would hold up in court, even if they were considered a public square in California
Well,
free
even
speech law.
even spreading misinformation purposefully that could change the results of the election or make people not vote, that could also be a
It
crime.
could. Like, misinformation is one of those things that, has typically been supported as free speech, but if it has something to do with a free and fair election, maybe that would be different. For example, Holocaust deniers are allowed to say the Holocaust never happened, and that's misinformation.
Yeah,
But
but anything that impacts an election there's actually laws in many counties. I don't believe it's a federal law right now, but many counties have laws that make it illegal to spread misinformation that could affect an election.
yes, and those would be considered narrowly tailored rules, which under California law would probably hold up.
Right.
So let's move on to the Deso blockchain of course, decentralized social media. Goldberry, our unofficial intern, Goldberry, let us know that Mossified made a really interesting post yesterday. He shared the developer experience strategy document. A lot of developers within Deso have been waiting for this, have been waiting for some kind of roadmap and on where we're going as far as development of Deso goes. And the objective of the developer strategy, or the developer experience strategy, I should say, is to build a strong and compelling foundation that positions Deso as a world-class organization for developers, founders, and partners looking to integrate and build consumer-focused decentralized applications. And it went on to discuss a myriad of ideas, myriad of things that they plan on doing. It compared Deso's developer portal to that of Solana, that of other blockchains. It discussed an ideal state and says that this experience would be greatly improved if there was a clear funnel and pathway for developers to hear about Deso, learn about developing on Deso, get started building on Deso with helpful documents, guides, video tutorials, and boilerplates, stay updated on new announcements, breaking changes, and roadmap items, reference open source application code in a structured way, discover and access incentives to pursue building Deso applications, and join community teams virtually or locally for peer level support. Again, the document went into much more detail than this. I definitely recommend reading it, whether you're a developer on Deso or just a user on Deso, because you're going to gain a lot of insight in where they're going with this. Just check out the link above this video on Deso or below it on YouTube.
Yeah, all very important information, especially if you're considering developing on Deso or you are a developer on Deso. It's also important that we continue to build out the developer ecosystem at Deso, because it's the developers that's gonna provide the technology that can attract new users.
Exactly. And as many of you know, NFTZ.me is the only place on the Deso blockchain where you can view and post live timed auctions. Just go to nftz.me/auctions, and you see all of the auctions ending soon. I do want to highlight two that are ending soon. Swaps number 043 ends today at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. And Art2Z has multiple Deso Joker NFTs that are ending throughout the day today. Really cool, pretty low price, so check those out as well.
Yeah, I quickly want to get to the top NFT bidders on the Deso blockchain over the last 24 hours. These people bid on the most NFTs on Deso in the last day. Dead Metal, Slice Rabbit, Boxer XXX, Mir Killy, Trippy Rocket Man, Pipaloo, Alga One, Bearded Goat, Meta Philosopher, and Mr. Music. And the top diamonded creators over the last 24 hours, thanks to our friends at Altumbase for this list. These people will receive the most diamonds or tips on their Deso post and replies in the last day. Miami, Japan was number one, followed by Yuchi, Panini, Striga, Be It Me Not You, Riga, ECOE,
ABCD Amir, Oh La La, who had a nice NFT drop on Clubhouse last night, and Deso Girl.
Yeah, those rhinos were really cool by Ooh La La. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.